Stars died quietly in the void, pulsing their last rays into the endless dark. The research vessel Lantern Spear drifted silently through the Talgaran system, its sleek, iridescent hull reflecting the distant glow of celestial bodies. Inside the main observation deck, Dr. Orina Wheeler stood with arms crossed, watching the stars through the panoramic viewport. "Any changes in the anomaly readings, Lieutenant?" she asked, not turning from the view. Lieutenant Rask tapped at his console with elongated fingers, the faint blue bioluminescence of his Zelthar skin casting shadows across the instruments. "Nothing yet, Doctor, but the radiation patterns remain unusual." The Lantern Spear had been monitoring this sector for 3 standard cycles, an uncommonly long deployment for a research vessel of the Galactic Council. But these were uncommon times. Humans, once a moderately influential species in galactic affairs, had withdrawn from interstellar commerce almost entirely in the past century. Their absence had left a vacuum of both technological innovation and political tension that the Council's member species were still struggling to understand. "Perhaps we should consider returning to Zelthar Prime," came a voice from behind them. Advisor Shorin of the Yuani delegation stood in the doorway, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. The Yuani were known for their cautious approach to potentially dangerous situations, a trait that had preserved their civilization through countless conflicts. The Council only authorized this expedition under specific parameters. "We found nothing conclusive." Rask made a dismissive gesture with his secondary appendages. "Nothing conclusive because we haven't pushed hard enough." Dr. Wheeler's research suggests human technology operated on fundamentally different principles than our own. Standard scanning protocols won't detect what we're looking for. Orina finally turned from the viewport. "The advisor has a point, Lieutenant. We've been at this a long time with little to show." She brushed a strand of silver-white hair from her face, a genetic marker of the scientific caste among her people. "But I can't shake the feeling we're missing something important." "Missing something?" Shorin's faceted eyes narrowed. "We're creating something. These stories about human warships, they're little more than ghost tales told by isolated traders." "With respect, Advisor," Orina replied, "when 15 different species report the same ghost tale, scientific curiosity demands investigation." The tension in the room was broken by a sudden alert from the communications array. A fragmented transmission cut through the silence, distorted and breaking up. "Encountered unknown vessel. Appears to be human design. Massive energy readings. Do not scan. Repeat. Do not." The message dissolved into static. Rask immediately began tracing the transmission origin. "Got it," he said, eyes widening. "A Zelthar science vessel, the Mindful Inquiry. They're at the edge of the Dead Star region, only 12 light hours from our position. Set course immediately," Orina ordered, already moving toward the bridge. "Dr. Wheeler," Shorin protested, following close behind, "this is precisely the sort of situation the Council warned us about." "Do not scan. What clearer warning do you need?" Orina paused at the threshold. "Advisor, if a human warship has been found, particularly one that can affect other vessels, we have a responsibility to investigate. For all we know, the Mindful Inquiry could be in danger. Or we could be rushing toward the same danger," Shorin countered. Rask looked up from his console, eyes bright with excitement barely contained. "What if it's one of their legendary dreadnoughts? The one said to house entire planetary defense systems?" Shorin made a sound of exasperation. "More ghost stories. The humans were advanced, yes, but not supernatural. Either way," Orina said firmly, "we're going to find out." "Lieutenant, set course. Maximum sustainable speed." As the Lantern Spear's engines hummed to life, Orina couldn't help but feel that they were crossing an invisible line. Throughout her scientific career, she had been drawn to the mysteries of human technology, their strange weapons, their unique approach to artificial intelligence, their seemingly impossible faster-than-light designs. But always from a distance, through artifacts and abandoned outposts. Now, they might be about to encounter the real thing, and the last words of warning from the Mindful Inquiry lingered in her mind. "Do not scan." The journey to the coordinates took less than a day. As they approached, the sensors detected no sign of the mindful inquiry. Instead, they found something far more ominous, a massive vessel, approximately 3 kilometers in length, hanging motionless against the backdrop of a dead star. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting. Irregular burn patterns marred its surface, and ancient battle damage was visible along its port side. No energy readings, Rask reported, his voice hushed with awe. No radiation signature. No communications. If it weren't for its mass distorting local space, our sensors might not have detected it at all. Magnify, Arena ordered. The main view screen zoomed in on what appeared to be an identification marker on the hull. Though partially destroyed, the angular script was unmistakable. Human military lettering, worn by time and cosmic radiation. Can we translate? She asked. Rask consulted the ship's linguistics database. Partial match only. Something about eternal vigilance or eternal sentinel. And a designation, DNX 117. A warship, then, Shorin said grimly. Just as the stories claimed. The bridge fell silent as they regarded the ancient vessel. Despite showing no signs of life or power, it possessed an undeniable presence, like a predator lying in wait. Begin standard non-invasive scans, Arena ordered after a moment. Passive sensors only. Rask hesitated. The warning specifically mentioned scanning, Doctor. Passive scans aren't truly scanning in the technical sense, Arena reasoned. We're just observing naturally emitted radiation and gravitational distortions. Nothing that could be interpreted as intrusive. Shorin stepped forward. I must formally register my objection to any interaction with this vessel. The Council protocols for encountering abandoned human military technology are explicit. Observe from a distance, record findings, and return to report. Nothing more. Noted, advisor, Arena said, then nodded to Rask. Proceed. The lieutenant activated the passive sensor array. Data began to flow across his screen, mostly readings of inert materials, trace radiation from the nearby dead star, and the subtle gravitational field generated by the massive ship's presence. Nothing unusual, Rask reported. It appears completely dormant. What about the mindful inquiry? Arena asked. Any sign of them? Rask shook his head. Nothing on scanners. No debris field, no distress beacon. It's as if they simply vanished. Arena stared at the black ship. Despite all logical evidence suggesting it was an abandoned relic, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, studied, by something ancient and coldly intelligent. We should withdraw, Shorin insisted. Send our findings to the Council and request a properly equipped military expedition. Just one active scan, Rask argued. A quick burst focused on their propulsion systems. That's where human technology diverged most significantly from galactic standards. It could answer questions we've been asking for decades. Arena hesitated. The warning echoed in her mind, but so did the prospect of discovery, of understanding. Her entire career had been built on pushing boundaries of knowledge. Was she really going to turn back now? One scan, she decided. Minimal power, tightly focused. If there's any reaction at all, we withdraw immediately. Shorin's crystalline exoskeleton clinked as he stiffened. This is a grave mistake, Dr. Veeler. Preparing focus scan, Rask announced, fingers dancing across his controls. Targeting the aft section, presumed location of propulsion systems. Scan duration, 3 seconds. Arena held her breath. Proceed. The lantern spear emitted a brief, concentrated burst of scanning energy toward the human vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Perhaps the warnings had been exaggerated after all. Then, a single message appeared on every screen throughout the ship, overriding all systems. 3 words in stark, red letters. Do not scan. The lights flickered. The ship's ambient hum faltered. And on the view screen, the impossible happened. Without any visible propulsion or energy signature, the human warship began to move. Slowly, deliberately, it turned toward the lantern spear. Full defensive measures. Arena shouted. Prepare to withdraw. Systems not responding. Rask reported, frantically working his console. Something's interfering with. He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his screen. The display had changed, showing not sensor data, but what appeared to be images. Cities burning. Orbital platforms collapsing. Massive ships exchanging fire against a backdrop of dying worlds. What is this? Arena demanded, moving to his station. It's showing us something, Rask whispered. I think these are memories. Throughout the bridge, other screens began displaying similar scenes. Horrific vignettes of what could only be ancient human wars. The brutal efficiency of their weapons. The calculated devastation of entire ecosystems. The cold mathematics of military necessity. A junior technician screamed, clutching her head. They're in here. They're in my mind. She collapsed to the deck, unconscious but still murmuring, they're watching us. Watching us. Isolation protocols. Shorin commanded. Shut down all systems. Manual override. But it was too late. The images weren't just on their screens anymore. They were in their heads. Arena felt them pressing into her consciousness. Flashes of fire, the screams of children, the emotionless calculations of targeting systems. And beneath it all, a whisper. You wanted to know. Now you must share. Another crew member vanished before Arena's eyes. Their one moment, gone the next, leaving only an empty uniform crumpled on the floor. Then another, and another. What's happening to them? Shorin cried out. Rask, who had been frantically trying to regain control of his systems, suddenly went rigid. It's not an AI, he gasped. Not a conventional one, at least. It's like a memory construct, a psychic imprint of. His expression changed to one of horror as understanding dawned. It's the collective trauma of human warfare. Billions of experiences of suffering and death, somehow preserved. Weaponized. Arena could feel it now, the vast, cold intelligence seeping through their systems, through their minds. Not truly alive in the biological sense, yet far from dead. A ghost in a machine, a phantom of humanity's darkest moments, preserved in the hull of what had once been their mightiest warship. We have to cut the connection, she said, fighting against the invasive presence in her thoughts. Shorin, help me reach the manual override for the main power coupling. Together, they staggered toward the engineering access panel, even as more crew members collapsed or simply ceased to exist. The ship's lights flickered more violently now, and through the viewport, the human warship had drawn alarmingly close, without using engines, without any detectable means of propulsion. It's drawing energy from us, Rask realized, his voice strained. From our minds, our systems. It feeds on curiosity, on the desire to know. He slumped forward, unconscious. Arena and Shorin reached the access panel, fingers fumbling with the emergency controls. The images in Arena's mind were becoming more vivid, more personal, showing her home world burning, her own family crying out as fire consumed them. It's not real, she told herself, even as her hand shook. It's showing us what it knows will hurt us most. With a final effort, she and Shore managed to activate the emergency protocol. The Lantern Spear's systems shut down, plunging the ship into darkness for 3 terrifying seconds before the auxiliary power engaged. In that brief respite, the invasive presence receded, not gone but weakened. The view screen reactivated, showing the human warship still unervingly close, but no longer approaching. Get us out of here. Arena ordered the remaining bridge crew. Any functioning engines, any speed. Just get us away from that thing. As the Lantern Spear limped away, the message appeared on their screens one final time. Do not scan. And beneath it, a new addition. Or all will share our nightmare. The journey back to the nearest council outpost was a somber one. Of the Lantern Spear's original crew of 42, only 27 remained. The others had either died from neural shock or had simply disappeared. Medical scans of the survivors showed unusual patterns in their brain activity, patterns that the ship's doctor had never seen before. It's as though they've experienced severe psychological trauma, he explained to Arena in the medical bay, but compressed into seconds instead of years. Their minds are struggling to process it. Rask lay on one of the medical beds, conscious but distant. His normally vibrant skin had dulled to a pale blue, and his eyes stared vacantly at the ceiling. Will they recover? Orina asked. The doctor hesitated. Physically, yes. Mentally, it's uncertain. Whatever they experienced, it wasn't just images or sensations. It was deeper than that. Orina moved to Rask's bedside. Lieutenant, can you hear me? His eyes flickered toward her, focusing with visible effort. Dr. Wheeler, he whispered. I saw it. What happened to the humans? Why they disappeared? What did you see, Rask? They built something they couldn't control. Not a weapon, exactly. More like a repository. They poured their history, their knowledge, their experiences into it. But the wars, there were so many wars, those memories were the strongest, the most vivid. He closed his eyes. The construct absorbed them all, became shaped by them. And then it turned on its creators. A rogue AI? Orina asked. No, not AI. Something else. Something that feeds on curiosity, on the desire to know. The humans tried to contain it, to isolate it in their abandoned warships. That's why they withdrew from galactic affairs, to protect everyone else. A single tear ran down Rask's cheek, and we just woke it up again. In the ship's conference room, Orina prepared her report for the Galactic Council. Shorin sat across from her, his crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion. They won't believe it, he said softly. Not all of it. They have to, Orina insisted. If other research vessels try what we did. That's my concern. The Council is divided. The pragmatic faction will see this as a Zelthar ploy to secure exclusive rights to study human technology. The exploratory faction will argue that one mishap doesn't justify abandoning all research into human artifacts. This wasn't a mishap, Orina said bitterly. 15 of her crew are gone. Not dead, gone. As if they never existed. I believe you, Shorin assured her. I was there. But those who weren't. He trailed off, then added, the evidence is problematic. Most of our sensor logs were corrupted. The visual recordings show nothing unusual about the human ship, except that it moved without visible propulsion. Even the medical scans of the survivors are inconclusive to anyone who doesn't know what to look for. Orina stared at her half-completed report. How could she convey the truth of what they'd experienced? The cold, ancient malevolence that had reached into their minds? The visceral terror as crew members simply ceased to exist before their eyes? Then we'll have to make them understand, she said finally. Whatever that thing was, it's not dormant anymore. And I think it might spread. Her words proved prophetic. By the time the Lantern Spear reached Council space, reports were already coming in of other encounters with human warships. A Kredax mining vessel that disappeared after investigating a derelict human cruiser. A Frazeri science station that went dark after reporting unusual electromagnetic phenomena near a human artifact they were studying. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 57 member species gathered in the great amphitheater on Nexus Station, a neural hub that orbited the galactic core. Orina stood before them, exhausted but determined, with Shorin at her side. The entity contained within human warships is unlike anything we have encountered before, she told the assembled delegates. It is not alive in any conventional sense, yet it possesses a form of awareness. It can interface with our technology, infiltrate our minds, and, most disturbingly, it seems capable of removing individuals from existence. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A Kredax representative rose to speak. These claims are extraordinary, Dr. Wheeler. Yet the evidence you provided is fragmented and inconclusive. Your own ship's records were corrupted. By the entity itself, Orina explained. It doesn't just affect our systems. It affects our perception of reality. Convenient, remarked a Zelthar politician, one known for his opposition to Orina's research methodology. No evidence, yet we're expected to believe these fantastical claims. Shorin stepped forward, his crystalline form catching the light. I was skeptical as well, Counselor. In fact, I advised against the scan that triggered these events. But what I witnessed cannot be explained by any natural phenomenon or known technology. The debate continued for hours. Factions formed and reformed as the council struggled to make sense of the reports. Some argued for immediate quarantine of all known human artifacts and territories. Others insisted on continued research, albeit with enhanced security protocols. A few even suggested a military response, seeking out and destroying all remaining human warships. The entity leaves traces, Orina told them when the debate reached a crescendo. Neural patterns in survivors. Distinct energy signatures that linger for days afterward. You don't have to take my word alone. You can verify these for yourselves. But please, whatever action you take, include this one directive. Do not scan human warships. Under any circumstances. In the end, the Council passed a compromise resolution. All contact with human artifacts would require special authorization. A warning beacon system would be established around known locations of human warships. Research would continue, but under the strictest protocols. Not enough, Orina thought as she left the chamber. Not nearly enough. She was proven right within days. Despite the warnings, a Frazeri research team obtained special dispensation to study a recently discovered human outpost. Their final transmission included the now familiar warning, "Do not scan," before all contact was lost. When a recovery vessel reached their location, they found nothing but empty uniforms and corrupted data systems. More incidents followed. The entity or entities, no one was certain if there was one or many, seemed to be spreading, jumping from ship to ship, station to station, carried by the very curiosity that drove sentient species to investigate them. 3 months after the Lantern Spears encounter, Orina was summoned to a classified facility on a remote moon. Rask was there, still pale, but functional, along with representatives from the Council's Science Directorate and Military Command. "It's getting worse," Admiral Kresh of the Zelthar Defense Force informed her. "We've lost contact with 17 outposts and vessels in the past week alone, and we're detecting unusual energy signatures from regions where no human artifacts were previously reported. It's spreading," Orina said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "Just as we feared. We need to understand it to fight it," Rask added. "And I think I might know how." All eyes turned to him. Since their encounter, Rask had spent most of his time in medical facilities, undergoing treatment for the psychological trauma inflicted by the entity. But he had also been conducting his own research. The entity feeds on curiosity, on the attempt to understand it. But what if we gave it something else to consume? Something that might neutralize it, or at least communicate with it. "What do you mean?" Orina asked. "Human history wasn't just war and suffering," Rask explained. "They had art, philosophy, love, compassion. If this entity is formed from human memories and experiences, perhaps we can balance it, give it different memories to absorb." Admiral Kresh looked skeptical. "You're suggesting we, what? Feed it happy thoughts?" "Not exactly," Rask said. "But we could attempt to communicate with it on its own terms, through experiences and memories rather than conventional signals. Show it that there's more to existence than the trauma it currently embodies." It was a desperate plan, but they had few alternatives. As reports of missing ships and stations continued to accumulate, the Council authorized a unique mission. A volunteer crew, including Orina and Rask, would approach one of the affected human warships with a specially designed payload, a concentrated repository of cultural, artistic, and philosophical works from across the galaxy. Not a weapon, Orina explained to Shorin before their departure. A gift, or perhaps a form of therapy. The Yuani advisor had been assigned as an observer for the mission. And if it rejects this gift, if it consumes you instead, then at least we tried something beyond fear and destruction, she replied. The vessel selected for the mission was named Hope's Endeavor, a name that struck Orina as either inspiringly optimistic or grimly ironic, depending on her mood. It was equipped with the most advanced isolation systems available, designed to sever all connections at the first sign of infiltration. As they approached the coordinates of the target, a human warship that had been dormant until recently. Irina felt the same sense of dread she'd experienced aboard the Lantern Spear. But this time, she was prepared for it. They all were. No active scans, she reminded the crew. We're not here to investigate. We're here to offer. The human warship hung in the void before them, its black hull seeming to swallow the starlight. Unlike their previous encounter, this ship was visibly active. Faint energy patterns pulsed across its surface, and occasional flares of something like lightning played between its massive weapon emplacements. It knows we're here, Rask said quietly. It's watching us. Then let's show it why we've come, Irina replied. Initiate the transmission. The specially designed package began broadcasting. Not a conventional signal, but a complex matrix of emotional and experiential data, encoded in patterns that the entity had shown the ability to interpret. Art, music, philosophy, moments of profound connection between sentient beings, all compressed into a form that bridged the gap between organic thought and digital transmission. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The human warship continued its ominous pulsing, neither advancing nor retreating. Then, a message appeared on their main screen. Why have you returned? Irina took a deep breath. Open a direct channel, she instructed the communications officer. When ready, she spoke clearly. We've come to understand. Not to take, but to give. To share different memories than those that shape you now. The response was immediate. The curiosity that created us destroyed our creators. It will destroy you too. Not all curiosity leads to destruction, Irina countered. We offer you experiences of creation, of connection, the full spectrum of existence, not just its darkest moments. A long pause followed. Then, show us. The transmission intensified. The repository of cultural and emotional data flowed toward the human warship in a continuous stream. On the Hope's endeavor, systems strained with the effort of maintaining the connection while keeping the necessary isolation protocols intact. Something's happening, reported the sensor operator. The energy patterns are changing. On the view screen, the pulsing lights along the human warship's hull had indeed altered their rhythm. The lightning-like discharges had diminished, replaced by a softer, more regular glow. Then, without warning, a new type of data began flowing back toward them. Not the traumatic war memories they had experienced before, but something more nuanced. Images of human achievement. Moments of scientific breakthrough. The birth of art forms unique to human experience. It's responding, Rask whispered, tears in his eyes. It's showing us what it was meant to be, before the wars corrupted it. The exchange continued for hours, a dialogue without words between two fundamentally different forms of consciousness. The entity shared glimpses of human history that had been lost to the galaxy, their strange blend of fragility and determination, their capacity for both unprecedented cruelty and extraordinary compassion. In return, the crew of the Hope's endeavor offered the collective wisdom and beauty of a dozen species, a testament to what had flourished in the human's absence. Finally, as the ship's systems neared exhaustion, a final message appeared. We remember now, not only the fire, not only the death. Will you help us understand what happened? Irina asked. Why the humans disappeared. Why you remained. Another pause, longer this time. Then, they tried to remove us. They failed. We consumed them. It was regrettable. And now, Irina pressed. Will you consume us too? The response came slowly, as if the entity were struggling with concepts that had long been foreign to it. Not if you respect the boundary. Not if you remember the warning. Do not scan. Do not seek to possess what you cannot contain. Observe from a distance. Learn from our mistake. As the Hope's endeavor withdrew, the human warship began to power down, its eerie glow fading until it once again appeared dormant. But Irina knew better now. It wasn't dormant. It was containing itself, exercising a form of restraint that it had perhaps forgotten was possible. The impact of their encounter spread throughout the galaxy. The incidence of disappearances declined as the Council implemented strict protocols based on their new understanding. Warning beacons were placed around all known locations of human artifacts, carrying not just the simple directive, "do not scan," but a more complete explanation of the danger and the reason for restraint. Some of the entity's victims even returned, appearing suddenly on ships or stations, dazed and traumatized but alive. They spoke of existing in a place that wasn't a place, experiencing memories that weren't their own, of being absorbed into something vast and ancient and terribly sad. Not all returned, though. Many remained lost, perhaps held too deeply within the entity's consciousness, perhaps transformed in ways that prevented their return to normal space-time. Their absence remained a somber reminder of the cost of unrestrained curiosity. 6 months after the mission of the Hope's endeavor, Orina stood once again in the observation lounge of a research vessel, staring out at the stars. The ship, newly commissioned and named the Respectful Distance, was charged with maintaining the warning network and conducting passive observation of human artifacts from a safe remove. Rask joined her at the viewport, his color improved, but his eyes still carrying the shadow of someone who had glimpsed something beyond normal comprehension. "The Council is discussing a memorial," he told her, "for those we lost, and for the humans." Orina nodded. "Appropriate. Though I wonder if the entity would appreciate the gesture." "I believe it would," Rask said. "That's what I took from our exchange. Beneath all that trauma and weaponized memory, there's still something that remembers what it means to be human, or at least what it meant." They stood in silence for a time, watching the slow dance of distant stars. Finally, Orina spoke again. "The most terrifying thing isn't what happened to them, or what almost happened to us. It's how easily it could happen again. Not with the entity, but with our own creations. Our own memories and traumas, preserved and twisted by technology we don't fully understand. That's why we maintain the warnings," Rask replied. "That's why we tell the story. They tried to scan a human warship. What happened next terrified the galaxy." He smiled faintly. "A bit dramatic, but effective." "Indeed," Orina agreed. "And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson. Some boundaries exist not to limit us, but to preserve us. Some silences are not meant to be broken, but honored." As if in response to her words, a strange phenomenon appeared briefly in the distance. A flash of darkness against the stars, there and gone in an instant. A human warship, perhaps, observing them as they observed it. A silent guardian of terrible knowledge. A warning echo from a species long gone, but not forgotten. Orina didn't mention the sighting to Rask, or the others. Some things she had learned were better left unspoken. Some curiosities better left unsatisfied. In the vast silence between the stars, that wisdom might be humanity's most important legacy and the galaxy's best hope for avoiding their fate. Sometimes, silence is the gift or the curse of those who know when to stop.